more of you stay around as well. So on that note, Tim, over to you, mate. Go for it.
Great, thanks very much. Can you hear me okay? It's much easier being a short guy. Get close to the microphone. Cool, thanks for having me. So I'm Tim Jeffries. I run a little consulting agency called SmoothOps, and we help businesses build out their digital operating systems. We've been doing it for nearly 10 years, which in internet years makes me about 100. But most of the time we didn't even know what AI was, and so it's changed a lot over the last little while. I've got a small team. There's literally 4 of us, and we have been helping businesses build out kind of their operating systems and then the AI that sits on the top. And today what I want to do is show you our system, so the SmoothOps one, the internal one that we use. And we are going to go from, in 45 minutes, someone being a complete stranger to SmoothOps all the way through to being a signed customer, mostly just by talking to the workspace. So I really wanted to, I guess, take this opportunity to show you step by step how we do it and some of the thinking behind it. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. I do it one-on-one a lot, and so very interesting to do it for a whole room here. We, for years, just helped businesses think about the structure of their information, their overall system, and it wasn't until AI came along that I realised we'd actually spent all that time training for what's happening now. If you're trying to use AI at all, you realise, our data is a mess, it's pretty hard to use AI. And so a whole lot of what you'll see today is kind of built on these really strong foundations of structured information, clear processes, clear thinking. That is often the magic behind kind of what looks like technical genius, is a whole lot of clear thinking that happens beforehand. I want to introduce you to Al. Al's the name of my AI because for the first little while, when I saw AI everywhere in the media, I thought they were talking about some bloke called Al, and so he will forever be known as Al. There's a few things that make Notion's implementation of AI so capable, so powerful. I had a chance to chat to Ivan when he was in Australia last year. He's the founder of Notion. I asked him, when did you realise that Notion and AI was going to be such a neat fit? And he kind of smirked and said, we just got really lucky. The architecture, the way Notion is built with the blocks, the structured data, layering AI straight onto the top of that and creating effectively AI Lego blocks has just been a really neat fit. And as a long-time user of the product, I had no idea what was coming. But I hope what you'll see today is that you can take Notion's AI Lego blocks and build out kind of your system and what you need from AI. So let me introduce you to Al himself. So one of the reasons that Notion AI is so capable is that you can give AI custom instructions. So your personal agent who follows you everywhere, usually down in the bottom right-hand corner, has the ability to be given custom instructions. Now, if you've used lots of other AI tools, you'll know what I'm talking about. The instructions that give it some guardrails about what it is and isn't allowed to do, what its personality should be. You get to make these up yourself. You get to really sort of think, how do I want this to work? And then when it does something you find really annoying, you say, hey, don't do that anymore. Can you write that in your instructions? And away you go. So it loads this before every conversation. These are mine. There's a whole bunch of funny things that you can put in here. You'll see in here, I love the movie Interstellar, and so Al and I have decided that Tars is the spirit animal that he's going to embody. But yeah, so you can have a bit of fun with it, but also you can really shape it around the work that you do, how you operate. It's not the full instructions for everything it does, it's just the kind of guardrails, the guidance that you give it. So a bunch of rules. And then the next thing that Notion does so well as a system of record is hold all your data and structure all your information so that AI can understand what's there. And you don't have to supply it context every time you want it to think about something. It already sees and knows this system. So this is ours. This is the kind of SmoothOps, bunch of databases. And you can see we manage projects and knowledge and CRM and sales and all of these different pieces. All of those links are actually databases where the information is held. So we're just helping the AI understand this is where the stuff lives. The next piece that makes Notion AI such a capable system are skills. And again, you'll see these in other platforms, AI skills. The concept is really that it's like the SOP for the AI to follow for a very specific task, broken right down to, I've got this one job for you, here are the steps to do it. And we might jump into, well, just any of these really. We'll have a closer look at them in a little while, but you can see they're long documents, not super long, but they're detailed. It's not just a couple of dot points. And we define, this is the scope of what we're asking you to do. This is some context that you need. This is the input. This is the data that you're going to use to be able to do this job. These are some edge cases. And then this is the work. These are the steps that you take step by step by step. Go through this process. This is what the output should look like in the end. So it's pretty detailed. Just like if you were going to say to a brand new staff member, hey, I've got a job for you. This is exactly how you do it. If you are old enough to have ever written a procedure manual that sat on a shelf somewhere, you'll know what I'm talking about. We used to write these things and then expect people to read them and then expect them to use them. They probably didn't, but what's amazing about the AI is it does. You ask it, hey, read the skill, and it goes and it reads the skill. But I think the skills themselves are not enough. And this is one thing that we have been exploring really deeply at SmoothOps lately, is that you need more than just the instructions, and you need more than just the information that's context for that one instance of the job. You actually need the thinking behind the process. You need your IP. And, this is a room of founders. You have IP in your heads, probably. Maybe it's not even written down at all. That is unique to you, that gives you your edge in the market, that is the thing, that you are building. For AI to be effective for you, it needs to know that. It needs to understand that. And so for every process that you want to write a skill for, you also need to write what we're calling guides to support that. So it grabs the skill and it says, I've got to do this job. And then it grabs the doc that explains, why does this job have to happen? What's our thinking behind that? What's the reason? Not because it's having an existential crisis, but because it needs that step more context, right? It does a much better job if it really understands what's going on. And I think skills and guides together, the best metaphor for this is, it's seen in The Matrix where Neo learns karate really fast, goes from useless to black belt. It's that. It's the combination of, these are the steps, these are the skills that you need, but also here is the understanding to be able to do it. You hand AI all of that piece, and then it goes from not knowing anything about how to do whatever the job is or how you particularly do it. It learns it in what seems like a breath to us. It does the job, and then by the time you open the next chat, it's forgotten, right? It doesn't matter, it doesn't need it until you ask it again. The last thing that makes Notion AI really useful and powerful is custom agents. And so custom agents are the automation layer to AI skills running, basically. So something happens, a form gets filled in, someone changes a status in a database, an email arrives, any of those things, and it kicks off the agent running the skill without you stopping and thinking about it and asking. Happens while you sleep. So what I want to do today is show you 3 skills running as a part of our process. We've really broken down our business. I don't know if you noticed, but here, if we're just looking, these are all the skills that we run at SmoothOps. And so you can see I've sort of divided them into sales, delivery, operations, productivity, and content. The sales process, I think I've probably put the most work into, but really what we're doing is we're growing a business. We are putting on new consultants, but we're putting on consultants and agents kind of together. We need the humans, absolutely. And as you'll see in my process, most of it is human-led, but they get supported by agents who can do the first 70, 80% of the work, and then the humans can take it the rest of the way. So our sales process is scaffolded from start to finish. I'll show you in a minute. There's 13 steps. And AI plays a role all the way along, and there's guides written that help make sense of it, and there's skills written so that AI knows what to do, and we walk ourselves through the process. Do you want to have a look? All right. So we're going to do this live, which is always fun, because you never know what you're going to get. This is a form that lives somewhere on the internet that you can fill in if you want to hang out with us. And I'm going to hit submit, and then we're going to go and watch the agent do its thing. So I ran this earlier to test, and then I went and deleted everything. So let's see. So custom agents, these are the ones that are automated, get triggered in a bunch of different ways. If you've ever built automations, you know there has to be something to kick it off, some sort of trigger. And so in this case, you can see a page gets added to inquiries, which is what I just did, or an email gets received from a certain email address, or you apply a label to an email. That's the three ways that we worked out we need. See if it's arriving here. Here we go. Good. So it's arrived, and Notion have done this tricky thing where it waits to get started because it thinks someone might want to fill out some more details on the page. So it's not kicking off as soon as the page gets added. It's waiting for the edits to finish. But we don't want the edits to finish. We just need to get going. And so let's watch him go. The website inquiry gets filled out. I might actually jump and show you the instructions at the same time. So the instructions here are telling the agent what to do. And the instructions in this case are pretty simple. They're like, go and run this skill for me. So we'll have a look at the skill, and we'll let the agent do its thing. But the skill here says, you know, without going into details, find out who this is, grab all their information and set them up in the Notion workspace, which was the most boring 5 minutes of my day. I loved getting new inquiries, of course, but then to manually go and make all those entries was always a pain. And of course, I often didn't do little bits of it and forgot. And then there was a piece of the system missing. So using an agent like this has been amazing for making sure that everyone who contacts us gets followed up properly. And so you can see what's happened here. The agent's gone through and it's run the skill, and so it's created all the entries. Here's our fictitious Jordan Lee. Here's the company that they work for, their email address. All of their details now exist in our world. So it's gone to the Notion databases and filled them all in. It's connected all the relations. It's setting access controls so that the right people can see it inside the workspace. And I might just jump straight to the project. It's gone and actually created the project page for us already. So you can see here's the company, and here is the person, and here is even their initial inquiry that they filled out, and all the information that was in the form, so that whoever picks it up next can quickly and easily see. Away we go. So it's basic, right? It's just one simple, clear job. That's all it needed to do, but it picks it up and runs it, and we know consistently that that's going to happen. So let's think then about whether all that was worth it. Do we actually even want to hang out with Harbour and Vine? Can we help them at all? So the next step in our process is to run a lead qualification. Now, I used to do this just every single time. Every time a lead came in, we'd run the qualification flow. I realised after a while there's a bunch of leads that I know qualify. I don't need anything to check. So I stopped automating the process and just said, only if we're unsure about whether we should follow this person up, should we jump ahead and do it. So I'll just ask Al, please run the qualification lead. I always say please. You just never know, right? So that's going to happen. Let's have a look at the skill as we go. I should point out that these skills, they look like these long, impressive documents. I didn't write any of them. There is a skill to write the skills. Yeah, you've got to write the first one. You know, you've got to get the ball rolling initially. But, I mean, AI does a much better job of prompting itself than I ever could, as long as I supply the kind of key information. But the qualification is a real thinking piece for us. It is a real intelligence piece. You could look at the last one and think, well, I was just pushing data around, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But this piece is really about saying, hey, what is the smooth ops value? What do we really offer? And then how do we work out whether this person is going to be a fit and we can actually help them? So there's a bunch of guides here. There's a bunch of our clients, who they are, what they need, and how they buy, right? So this is internal IP about who we can help. It goes and reads that. there is a rubric to score them, right? And it's a detailed chart. I got this idea from like looking at my kids' reports. It says like, do they have pain clarity? Is there authority? Like asks all the right questions, gives it a scale to work with, gives it some decision bands, gives it the smarts that it needs to be able to do its job. You can see it's kind of done over here. And then defines what the output should look like. But see how important the guides are? Like without the guides, it's just, it uses the rubric and says, yeah, I've got to score them on these, but it doesn't really know who we are or what we offer or what the client is really likely to be like. It will make it up confidently, but it'll be generic. It'll just be whatever model we're using thinks about those kinds of things. So if we go and have a look, this is, it's, you know, because it's Notion, it's put a record in the database and against the project, this one. And so it said, Jordan is a 1.6 out of 2, not bad. But it's given us a summary of its work, what the risks are, what the next steps are, and then it's actually gone through and sort of justified its reasoning all the way through the process. This is super helpful, not just for me to kind of look back on, but for my team, right? I'm bringing people into the business that don't really understand, and I'm trying to onboard them and impart the way we do things. They run this qualification skill. It looks at the guide. They look at the guide. It makes an argument. They understand at a new level how we actually do what we do. It's not just about training AI. It's about like helping the business grow and helping the way your IP actually get out of your head and into your team, both AI and humans. All right, so Jordan's a good fit. Let's write Jordan a follow-up email. How are we going to respond? There's a lead follow-up process. And I have to say, I made this because, you know, it was my thing. It was my name all over everything. I was a bit nervous that someone else was going to start kind of responding to clients as we got too busy for me to do it all. And so I thought, okay, I'll just get these ideas out of my head and into the system. And everybody's worried about like AI writing emails. It's not sending emails, it's just writing them. But with a guide about who we are and how we think, and if we have a look at this skill, you'll see that this skill actually references a guide that talks about how we talk about smooth ops. So this is the thing that you need to read if you want to write anything and sound like us and authentically be us. This is a weird bit of me on the page, really. And that's kind of what the guides are. They need to bring your unique way of seeing the world out so that humans who probably won't read it, but AI who will read it, will understand it and use it. So it takes that, it takes the process, it grabs the context from the client themselves, they've told us. It does things like connect it to the pain points that we expect our clients might have, and then it writes this response, which is, in this case, pretty simple because it's just an initial follow-up, and it lands in here, kind of already written. Anyone in the team can use it. They eyeball it and say, yes, that sounds like us and that sounds like a good fit for this client. They hit send. 80, 90% of the work is done by AI. The humans just make sure that it's on point, and the humans are learning at the same time. Next time I go to write an email, I'm like, that one was better than mine. I'm going to, yeah. So I'm not going to go through in, detail every step in this process, but you can see that we have, this is the doc that kind of shows all of our processes end to end. So if I skip down here, the two purple ones are human only, but the rest of them are all supported by AI in some way. So there's 13 steps, and you can see we go from capturing leads, qualifying them, nurturing them. When someone actually books, then we have to prep for a discovery call. So how do we prep for a discovery call? Well, there's a doc that tells the AI these are the steps that you need to take to put a brief together for the consultant who's going to meet with someone. But also, there's a guide here that explains in great detail exactly what a discovery call is, what it's meant to do, why it exists, how I think it should be best done after having done this for 10 years. Whether it's right or wrong or not is a completely separate question, but it's going to follow this, right? And it understands it now. So we have pushed that as far as I think we can take it. The human then goes and meets with the client. The discovery call prep's done some research so that they know who they're talking to and they understand their pain points and they can genuinely listen and hear what's really going on. Afterwards, the AI helps them debrief, looks at the transcript of the call, grabs all the stuff that we have learnt about discovery calls over the years and puts it all together, usually in conversation too. So a lot of what I should point out is you run the skills produce a document, you just keep chatting with AI in the sidebar. Why did you say this? I thought, that problem usually resulted from this industry, what's going on? And you have this pretty deep back and forth with the AI that then compounds because you can go and update the guide after learning something new. And you don't start out on day one and sit down and write all your guides. You just write them when you need them as they crop up. And then we'll come out of our, weekly stand-up on a Monday. And I think there was some really good conversation from this new consultant who's working with us. They see this in a way that we never have. And then Al and I will have an argument for half an hour about how that needs to change the guide, and the quality of the business kind of goes up. So it's multiplayer. Yeah, it's designed to be used not just me, but actually with the team. And what I am really enjoying and did not expect at all is how much better it's making all of us. It's making me better, but it's doing a much better job of training the team than I ever could if it was just me trying to do it on my own. All right. I think that's a good example of how you can use AI. One of the things that's happening at the moment is I think we're all maturing a little bit and going, maybe you don't need to use tokens for absolutely everything. I blame Notion because for ages it was all free. And so I was just doing these ridiculous things. And then now I realised that's really expensive to do that. And so one of the things that has happened over the last couple of months is that Notion have released their developer platform. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's just this distinction that we actually knew before we got to this point that some things, they're deterministic. They just happen one step after another. The last step tells you what the next step should be. You don't need to stop and reason about it. There's no creative thinking required. In fact, creative thinking can be quite unhelpful sometimes. And I'm sure you've had this experience if you're building agents and it's actually doing the same thing over and over again, but every time you don't quite get the same answer. Like, hang on a minute, this is not quite right. And so that new client process, I'm just in the middle of, but changing that from being done by a large language model, which doesn't make any sense, to doing it in code or doing it with an automation platform. So previously, Zapier, Make, N8N, those kinds of things were the way to do it. What I've realised is that those platforms, they are code for people who can't code, but now we don't need that anymore because we have AI who can code for people who can't code. And so it's much easier and a lot more efficient oftentimes to get AI to write code for you. So what I'm going to do and what I'm sort of in the middle of at the moment is kind of working through the business and looking at all of these areas where we should have been doing things deterministically, but instead we built a custom agent to do it. And so that new client intake process, for instance, the first bit is sometimes messy. Someone sends me an email. Who is the client? Which business do they work for? Like what in the email thread was actually the structured data that we need to be able to go to the next stage and set it up? I need AI for that bit. So I'll still have the custom agent grab that email, parse all that info and say, oh, the client is Jordan. He works for this company. He's got these problems. Put it in a structured place. And then I'll build one of Notion's new workers that says, great, let's search for Jordan. Does he exist in the people database? No. Make him. Company, search for it. No. Make it, et cetera, et cetera. And so then I think, what I've been experiencing over the last month or two is that you can get the best of both worlds. You get code doing efficient, cheap, fast things, and then you bring in and you spend your tokens wisely, and you don't go broke trying to do it. So the workers platform that Notion have rolled out really is at the moment it's a developer tool. Now, I think what developer tool means has probably changed a lot. I'm certainly not a developer. I can't write code, but I've been rolling these out. They've got a command line that you can jump in, and if you're not too scared, you'll be fine, right? The AI will kind of walk you through it. But I sat down recently with Sarah Sachs, who's the head of AI engineering for Notion, and she was telling me that they're actually building a series of tools so that anybody can just chat to Nosy, to Al, and say, I need a worker for this. Let's think about this process. It will write the code for you, and then it will deploy the code to the back end of the Notion systems. And so you'll be able to do it all kind of from within the one world. So I think that's really changing what's possible kind of with AI in a platform like Notion. If you were comfortable going and doing a whole bunch of it yourself, then I think those doors were open to you. But a platform like Notion is trying to, this was Sarah's line while she was here a couple of weeks ago, trying to bring the capability of the frontier models to the Fortune 5 million, which is all of us. So yeah, I think that piece is going to be really helpful and is going to really change, I guess, our experience of doing this work. I just wanted to pause and see if there were any questions. I've kind of thrown a whole bunch of stuff out there, and I wondered if I'd sort of triggered anything for people about how that works. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is everything that you're doing running in Notion, or are you using any other platforms, models, any other systems?
Are we using Notion for all of these things I've shown you today? Yeah. In the past, I was using N8N a lot to kind of bring things from outside worlds in. With the Notion workers capability, we haven't needed to do that, and we've been able to kind of keep it all on the one platform. Which has been amazing. At first, when they brought it out, to be honest, I was a little bit like, I don't need that. But to be able to have everything inside the one platform has actually, has a whole bunch of other benefits, security, permissioning, all of those kinds of that governance stuff. It's made a big difference. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll give you the mic so everyone can hear you. Sorry.
It seems like you're using Notion as your CRM as well. If that's the case, is there a limit on that?
No, not that I've found. So do you mean limits as in like how much data can you put in there? How much can you store?
What's reasonable for it to actually work with?
No, I haven't bumped into those limits. Notion's internal task database has 250,000 rows in it and does a whole bunch of formula calculations and whatever. So they put a lot of work into performance to the point where, I don't know how big your CRM is, but yeah. So I think one of the big changes, for ages I've been seeing the benefit of having everything all in the one world, but it was convenience and it was organisational. Like for teams to not have to go to multiple apps, and a company like Notion, that's what they were sort of saying to everybody. Hey, it's really good to have it all in the one world. But often it wasn't worth the trouble to switch. But now, as you can see with a process like this, to have our CRM and our project management and kind of delivery tools all together means that there's no break. The AI knows about it all the way through. The humans know it all the way through. All the context gets stored together. And it just compounds so fast that, it really does feel like there's sort of 3 or 4 of us, just for one person.
Thanks, Tim. Quick question here. Just trying to fully understand, what's the difference with workers and custom agents here? Like, how do you differentiate the two?
Yeah, great question. So custom agents are instances of AI that you can trigger in a variety of ways and then run a set of instructions and give their own permissions to. You can choose the model that you want to use for them, but it's AI, right? It's large language models doing their thing, and you get charged for them. This is the usage-based pricing piece. The other AI that sits in Notion is, of course, the personal agent, Al, here. Not usage-based pricing, can also pick the model, but human in the loop all the time. It can't go off and do things for very long without needing your attention. Workers are the ability to run code on Notion's servers. So literally what I've been doing is firing up Claude Code and then saying, I need you to read these docs about how Notion workers work and help me like write the code to automate this process for me, and then deploy that code onto Notion servers, authenticate with my Notion credentials, and away it goes. So that workers replace Zapier and Make and N8N, and they are the code friend of agents, if you like. Yeah.
Tim, just another question over here.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I'll just come forward. Yes. So my question was, so obviously I'm assuming that you have a big team, it's not just you. So how does the workflow look like when it comes to roles? Which roles have what abilities to do, run which workflows? And how does having a big team play into automation?
Yeah. So do you mean permissions-wise around roles, like who's allowed to see what?
What are some best practices or tips that you would give when
Yeah.
it comes to working with teams?
Yeah, sure. Yep. Yeah, great question. I think the governance thing, like just to say more broadly, the more we automate, the more we hand off to LLMs, like the more important the governance questions become. And so there's a fair bit of sleeping on it still, like we'll work it out as we go, but you can make a mess really fast. I've watched. So Notion has obviously a bunch of inbuilt permissioning. So things like the databases, you set permissions around who's allowed to change what, and that dictates what people's personal agents can change. Something like the skills, what we've done in our skills database is we actually have the skills are owned by someone, and it's only that person who can edit the skill, because you don't want to write a skill and then come back the next day and someone's changed how it works and it's not doing what you asked it to. We have some little tricks that we use where, like when I'm talking to Al, if I want it to execute a skill, I'll actually just put a hash key in my natural language, and then that triggers it to go and have a look in the skills database and see if it can match which skill I'm talking about based on these triggers and description. So it's, you just talk to it like normal, and most of the time I don't type, I speak to it. Yeah, and then I think in terms of the roles and who does what, it's like it always was. You know, I put on someone to help with admin, and they help manage the lead flow. And so she's got a job description, but now her job description is not write the email to respond to the lead flow. It's use the agent to support you to write the email. And usually she's doing 3 or 4 at once because she's waiting for the agent. And yeah, so that's what the job looks like now. Yeah. And then with the consultants, I mean, I think for us, we're just going end to end. So like if I pick someone up and work with them, I work with them all the way through and I use those skills. It's interesting to see, like, there's a little bit of variance in how people like to do it. My wife works with me and she does not like a bunch of my skills. But she has her own version of the same thing, you know, that is the proper way to do it. So, but it's good, right? Because then I look at both skills and I say to Al, why is her skill better than mine? What can we learn from this? And so there's this like useful cycle going on all the way through. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yep. Come down here.
Could the like other AI models agents that already built, for example, like Claude or Gemini or Codex, migrate directly to Notion, like
Yeah.
without much trouble?
Great question. So I think I saw it this morning online, so I'm not speaking out of turn, but there's external agents. So Notion have put together an API so that external agents can effectively live inside of Notion and be managed inside of Notion. And I think what we're seeing is that Notion wants to be the orchestration layer. They want to be the system of record and they want to be the place that you do your work out of. If you have agents on another platform, awesome. Those agents can live and be triggered from and access Notion. And still run off in their other world using the tokens from, you know, the other place and whoever you're paying for. So there's a whole bunch of that's going on, being released at the moment. And the other piece of the puzzle from the developer platform is that they have released Agent SDK, which means that external tools can talk to Notion AI directly. Not just the API, so not just the data itself pulling the information, but actually talk to Notion AI that, you know, is set up and prompted and can run skills and respond intelligently. So I mean, as I look at it, I'm seeing across the landscape, there's a bunch of smart companies who recognise that this is going to be a multi-platform, multiplayer world, and so they're doing what they can to collaborate with each other to get, and then just hone in on this is the bit that we do well. Use us for this, and then you can play nice with everybody else.
There was one. Sorry, I'll come to you. There was one. Let's see. I'm going to slide in here. Sorry. There we go. I'm just going to reach across.
Thank you. Hi, team. So how long did it take you to build everything you showed us today? And if you were going to do it again, what would you do differently? And for someone who hasn't used Notion AI before, what would be some quickest way that you recommend to get started to learn about building it? Or is it just like YouTube videos? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I've probably been building this. The most valuable thing I actually have is this handbook, like by far and away, because it's my IP. It's the bit that I know that nobody else does. The skills, well, AI wrote them after it saw me do it once. It reverse engineered what a good discovery call looked like and put the skills for the brief together. We've honed it a lot, but that's pretty easy to replicate. So I think the most important thing, as maybe it's always been, right? If you were running a business, like you always needed to encode your IP in your processes, in your culture, in your systems. That's not an AI thing, that's just true. So I think getting this down out of your head and into these pages is the most important piece. And I've probably spent 3 or 4 months, actually got pneumonia and was apparently, according to my wife, working too hard. And so I got like confined to bed and I wasn't allowed to meet any clients and my brain wouldn't stop. And so I just started chatting with AI about these ideas. And then then I realized, it's actually out of my head now. It actually is the process. And so that was in March. And since then it's just compounded now to the point that sales process, there's not really anything that happens in that process that's not written down in a guide. So I wouldn't get pneumonia again, but I would take the mental space to go and write it out. And I'm sure other people have already experienced this, but that work has become so much easier in this world where you have AI that can listen to everything you say, that can read over past work you've done. It's so easy to look, all our meetings are logged, right? All the discovery calls for the last, 250 clients, they're all there. And so part of the process was saying to AI, go back through all of those and work out the best. What is purely us? What do we do that's different? And help me crystallize it, and then back and forth, and then we end up with the doc. You couldn't do that before, but you can now, and it helps a lot.
I think we have a question just down here.
Yep.
If someone was to build this system for themselves in their business, where would be the first place that you start? Because obviously this is very overwhelming for a lot of people.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm just thinking of how much time this is going to take me to do all of this.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what we do with businesses. And so this is our process. Think about and clarify the systems of your business. No technology, just think about who are you, what do you do, get that super clear. You then have to somehow make the jump from this is our business and these are our high-level processes to what's all the information that we need to store. And so that's what this also overwhelming page is. All of these are databases and they all, I won't click on anything because this is all people's personal information in there, but that projects database has 600 projects in there from this period of time where we've thought about what's the status, as they go through the opportunity pipeline, what are the stages, what's all the information that we need to keep. So that's the first step. And if you've ever been in one of these sessions with me, I did a workshop here. It's literally I build the databases all on the page, one by one, make the relations between them. Just think in the clearest, simplest terms you can about your data. Because that's the foundation that will get stood on forever afterwards. That's what AI will use, that's what the humans will use. If you get that bit wrong, you're always coming back to refine it. And the rest of it kind of flows from there. Once you've got your tasks set up the way they need to be in your meetings and whatever it is that you're tracking, then it's not too hard in Notion to say, I need an interface, especially with AI, because you can use AI to do this bit. I need an interface of my tasks that's maybe looks a little bit like this template and gives me flexibility to do this, and it will build it for you. And then you can experiment with using that. And the AI, as you've seen, it just sits on the top of that. It just, as long as it knows where things live and it understands what you're trying to do, then it can go and read the meeting transcript and pull the tasks out and give them to the people because it understands your project management system and it knows how that works. Does that help? It does take a while, but it just compounds, it just stacks. You don't have to do it all at once. Yeah.
I think there's a question just here. Could you pop your hand up again so I can get the mic to you? Just here? Yep, great. Sorry, can you pass this mic down? Thank you.
Hi, Tim. Just your point that you just said you wouldn't open up a file because it's got people's data in it made me think, are you using this as an internal management tool as well? Like your business is going to grow at some point and then you're going to have more staff and there's learning opportunities in here for your staff already.
Mm-hmm.
But is this now also acting as an internal people management tool as well?
Yeah. Where is it? HR, somewhere in here. All this, like, we do all our finances through it. So when one of my team members works on a project, whatever that client is paying us, the employee is going to get a certain percentage of it, and the system is, like Notion is doing all of that calculation and thinking, and the team are just logging their time in it. But we just use the permissioning on the databases so that the person who is meant to see it can and the other people can't. Notion rolled out row-based permissions a little while ago. The big problem before that was that if you could see a database, you could see the whole thing. Now you can give it line-by-line permissioning, and so it works at scale to do that. I've done it in our little company, but I've also rolled it out in like a 400-person company where they use the same model for permissions.
Cool. The next question, Tim, is just down here. Now we're going to do a bit of a pass down of the mic, if that's okay. Thank you.
Hey, Tim. You mentioned briefly a couple of times about token usage and not blowing up your tokens. I was curious around if you had any systems you've replaced that you used before when it was a lot cheaper to run AI, and just like what systems those were that you've replaced.
The ones in grey here are the things, just happen to have this here. But yeah, it's a great question. And I think, especially in founder stage, you're obviously pretty conscious about burning capital. So anything that was plumbing, basically, I said, yes, sure, it's amazing that an agent can do this, but we can do it with code. And so in the last couple of weeks, we've written a worker that collects email. So any email that someone from the team sends, it looks in the people database and says, do we have this person's email address? If we do, are they allocated to a project? Great. Take a copy of that email and put it on the project. It is incredible context because every email we send now ends up in the project and AI just knows about it. And the same when emails come in, we label things that we want the worker to pick up and it picks them up and it goes and puts it in the client engagements database on that project. Same for calendaring. So if someone books into our calendar, there's a worker that looks at the Google Calendar and says, hey, someone's booked this thing. It puts an entry in the meetings database. It works out who all the attendees were. It makes sure they're in the CRM. It connects it to the right project. All of that context building, I've heard that term a whole bunch of times already today, is essential. So we sync Slack channels through, and we use AI there because the content of the Slack channel just on its own is a bit rough. So once a day, the AI has a look at all of the Slack channels for the different jobs and says, hey, this has got something substantial that's worth adding, and then adds it to the project. And so now what we have really, I mean, to be honest, the AI has a better read on what's going on in any job than I do, than any of us do, because one of us might talk to a client individually via email or something, and I would have missed that context, but Al picks it up. And when I say, Al, catch me up on this client, it says, oh, well, Haley was talking to them half an hour ago. Don't be an idiot when you get in the meeting.
Any other questions? Yep, we'll go down the middle. Actually, I'm going to go here and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, just following up on what we were talking about in terms of capturing email communication. So is workers really the only way to capture emails that you send and you receive, and Slack as well? Or are there like integrations that make that easier?
Yeah, workers is not the only way. Workers is just Notion's on-platform way. So you can write your own code to do it and use the Notion API to push that information into Notion. I still have a bunch of N8N workflows that I haven't brought across yet. And I think there's always going to be different ways of doing it that make more sense depending on the platform. You know, I've built a bunch of integrations between Notion and Xero, and there's a few reasons why I can't use workers to do that, so I'll still use the N8N workflows.
It's going to be a little hard to get the mic in. If you can just raise your voice, and then Tim will just repeat the question. Go for it.
I just had a quick question about the difference between the skills and the handles. Yep. Is this correct to say the skills is all about what to do and how to do it, and handles is about why? Perfect. I'm going to steal that. Nice work. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And I just didn't understand the need for it for a while. I didn't have any of these, like I'm just calling them guides. And then some of the quality of the output of the skills wasn't at the level that I thought it should have been. And I didn't really understand. And I was looking, it's got all the client context, you know, like it knows everything about what happened in the meeting. So it's got that context and it's got my instructions about what to do. Why is the output a bit rubbish? And then I realised, well, the thing that I know that it doesn't is how I think about that process, why that process is important and how it fits into our bigger philosophy about what we do. And so once I started, at first I just was loading up the skills with that information, and then that was dumb because the skills were getting really bloated, but also another skill needed the same information. So like the classic one is a voice and style guide. Right? There's ways that I want any external content to sound. There's things I do and don't want it to say. I just made one guide that's the voice and style guide, and there's probably 20 skills that all point at that voice and style guide. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yep. I'm going to come across here.
I was just wondering where your data is sitting on the back end, and is it being pushed out to the Notion LLMs? Have you got it fenced? What does that look like to actually protect all of the private information in there?
Yeah. So Notion's business is to provide us like the tools to run our businesses. So they're heavily incentivized to keep our data secure. And if you go and check out their sort of security privacy sections, it's all about everything is yours. No models get trained on it. They've got agreements with all of the providers. And actually when Fable came out recently, it was greyed out in the list of options that I could select. I don't know if it's still here anymore. Yeah, it's greyed out here. And it's greyed out because Notion couldn't guarantee that things from the model things that you used wouldn't get used to train the model. And so you have to go into your settings and specifically turn that on to kind of break the terms to be able to use it. So, look, I think we're all living in this strange world where we say, this is the agreement, no one's going to use it, it won't get trained on it, and we just trust that that's what's actually going on. I've never seen anything that makes me think otherwise, but like that's the world we live in. So in theory, it's all totally locked up and no one's stealing my amazing consulting IP. But if someone pops up, I'll know what's going on. Yeah.
We'll do one more question and then we'll call it because Tim's going to do a Q&A session at 3:30. So if you have any more questions, Tim will go into a bit more detail. So I'm going to do the last one just here.
Hi, Tim. I believe that you can create this sort of system in other platforms. So what are the pros and cons for people to use Notion to create this sort of system? Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know enough about other platforms probably to really speak to it. I haven't come across something, and if there is something I'd like to know, because we use Notion a lot, but if there was something better, I'd jump. Don't tell them I said that. It's the combination of the structured databases and like all of those tools that existed before AI came along with the ability to think, create this world of your processes and systems, create interfaces for the team to use, the flexibility of the tool like pre-AI, the automation platforms, like everything that it could do before, plus AI. Like, I don't think anything that I'm doing here is particularly earth-shattering. It's just, I'm hoping, a really good implementation of these ideas put together. And Notion just gave me the building blocks for it. Like, Notion's just Lego, and this is just using the Lego to play in the AI space in a way that seems to be working. Probably just the thing I would end with, just encouragement, is just the guides piece. Like, I spend a lot of time with founders and companies who are using AI, and everyone is still pretty obsessed with which tool they're using. And I don't think they're thinking anywhere near enough about, are we supplying AI with our unique way of seeing the world to get the results that we're looking for? I think if you were, your results would be much more amazing, regardless of which tool you were using. I switch models now, and most of the time I don't really notice, because I'm not smart enough to really need 4.8, right? Nothing I do requires that level of thinking, as long as the context that I'm providing it is good, and not just the context of like the meeting notes, and not just the steps that you need the AI to do, but your unique IP about why that's important. Cool, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Let's put our hands together for Tim. That was a great session. Really enjoyed it, Tim. Thank you.